Welcome everyone to this special edition of the Progressive Mind Show. My name is Sena, aka Alinko. I will be your host this evening as always. We may not be able to take Captain Mike's segment because of work duties, but we are very excited to be coming your way again. Today is February 10th, 2021, and we are celebrating Black History. In this month, everyone is reflecting on the contribution of the African Americans in this country, and as Africans, it's just appropriate, or people of the African origin, it's just appropriate that we engage ourselves and talk about some of the things that have been existing among us for a long time. And so this evening, we are privileged to have wonderful, great minds in the community who are going to be sharing their views. We ask that you join us, which is the goal of this platform, that you and I can engage on pertinent issues that are designed to make our community a better place. So once again, you're all welcome. I did like you all to share your feed, and if you're watching us on Facebook and YouTube in your homes, please take a moment to share the feed. Tell a friend to join us in this conversation, which we have dubbed the Diaspora Convo Part 2. We've had this before, and last week we did Thank You, African Americans. It's time that we engage other Afro community folks to talk about this. So this evening we are very excited. We will take a short break. When we come back, the conversation regarding the diaspora will continue. Please stay tuned and make sure you're sharing the feed as we take this short break. Welcome back again. This is going to be very exciting. My guests are ready. I think we're waiting for, I think the only person that's not here right now is Dr. Melida. I'm sure she's caught up in traffic, even though there's no traffic when it comes to virtual, right? There's no virtual traffic, but it could be technical virtual traffic, right? That can happen. But anyway, Dr. Melida will be joining us in a little bit. Actually, she's here. Okay, Dr. Melida, I was just talking about you, so we're glad to have you. Okay, great. Now, we would like to go straight into it. This evening is packed, and as I said earlier, we urge you out there to share the feed and join this discussion, because it's something that has been on the heart of a lot of us. We talk about it in our communities and our homes all the time. And so it is appropriate that we bring it up here to engage all of us. So we would like to take the verse of the day before we get into the program this evening. I'd just like to take it from Psalm 21, verse 1. It says, "O Lord, the King rejoices in your strength. How great is his joy in the victories you give." That would be the verse of the day, Psalm 21, verse 1. And I like it because it inspires me. So sometimes I like to share what inspires me. I hope it inspires you. And on that note, let me just take it straight from Faith D. PITTMAN. She is HBCU grad and a lab analyst. She's a first timer on the Progressive Mind Show. Faith, you are welcome. Actually, she's also a very good singer and an actress. Faith, I didn't want to give all our information, but you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm just so glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And next to Faith is Joseph Edwards. Joseph Edwards is also a brother that I met recently. He is an international teaching artist, an award-winning actor, and a playwright, reparations, truth, and reconciliation advocate. He's also a growth mindset coach. Great brother in the Washington, D.C. area. Joseph, you're welcome to the Progressive Mind Show.
Thank you, brother. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And then next to him is Professor EKOW AKYEAMPONG. Professor EKOW. No, I am missing the first one. Professor Angelo AKYEAMPONG, right? Professor Angelo EKOW AKYEAMPONG is also known as DJ Fisho. He is a communication professor and also a cyber security analyst in the Washington, D.C. area, a very popular DJ within the Ghanaian African community. Professor EKOW, would you want me to call you DJ Fisho?
Hey, whatever works is fine.
You're welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. And then next to him is Dr. Melida HARRIS-BARROW. She is a friend. She's a sister. She is everything. We've had a lot of community works together. I honor this lady. She has done a lot of things. Currently, she founded and chairs the 6th Global Chamber of Commerce. Huge organization. She's also the founder of Love, Peace, and Love, Truth, and Peace.
Yes.
Okay, and then also the owner of the Harris Enterprise. She leads a lot of organizations. She's also the ambassador for Panama Global Trade Investment.
Yes.
Okay, great. I wanted to make sure I got all that right.
Okay.
Dr. Mel, you're welcome to the Progressive Mind Show again.
Thank you.
Again and again. She's always here. Next to her is Melissa DUPREY. Melissa DUPREY is also DUPREY. Okay, she's also an actor, comic playwright, a spiritualist, and organizer. She holds a lot of titles and has accomplished a lot in our community. A famous actress, and we would be hearing a lot from her during the show. Melissa, you're welcome to the Progressive Minds.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And last but not the least, Rebecca. Rebecca is also a Chicago, she is an immigration rights advocate, a research assistant, and Chicago documenter. She holds other titles. I'll let her tell us about that. Rebecca is a great lady in our community. You're welcome again, Rebecca. Well,
thank you.
You're welcome. And then lastly, we have Romain Morrow. Romain Morrow is the host of Drive at 5 at Intellectual Radio. Great brother. Romain, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So guys, we'll just take a second to tell our audience anything else that I may have missed that you want our audience to know about you before we rumble and tangle. No, I'm just joking. But before we get into think of things, anything else that you would like the audience to know about you? I'll let the first timers do it because Melida and Rebecca, you guys, you're my people. Melissa, anything else that I've left out that you want your audience to know about you?
Well, I'm not famous. I'm Humble Park famous. I'm a Chicago native. I have a theater degree in performance, and I'm a solo artist. So I've created a lot of my work around intersectional identity, and that has led me to do other theater work, TV, and film. And so I was on the last season of Empire. I'm currently recurring on the show Grey's Anatomy. So I do a lot of TV and film, and I've recently just debuted my 5th solo show off Broadway this past Saturday. So in the midst of doing a lot of artistry and acting, I'm also deeply committed into writing out our intersectional identities in a way that centers Blackness within the diaspora.
That is powerful. That's powerful. Remain. Oh, Faith. Anything else that I left out that you would like the audience to know about you?
After that, I don't know if I can come any harder. I'm kidding. But there's not really much else about me. I'm just a former HBCU grad from Grambling State University, all the way in Grambling, Louisiana. So if any Tigers are listening, go Tigers. I currently work at Eli Lilly as a lab analyst in Indianapolis, Indiana. And that's really just all about me. I'm a business owner. I do have a business called Copper Crown Boutique that sells hair. And besides that, I'm getting there. I'm growing.
Excellent. Right. Thank you so much. Romain, again, anything about you that I left out that you would like the audience to know?
Just here in the flesh.
I hear you. I hear you. DJ Fisho.
Well, I think you covered it all the first time. Professor in Communication Studies here in Montgomery College, in Maryland. My background, of course, was in intercultural communication, but I did work in the media, as you know, in Ghana for quite a while before relocating. And I still have my passion for radio and TV and entertainment. So I DJ to relax, and I do have a successful virtual show on Facebook and Zoom on Sundays, Music for Your Quarantine Feet, which covers both the entertainment aspect and, of course, charity aspect to it as well. So it's good to be on your show, talking a little bit of diversity.
Thank you so much. And so I didn't leave anybody out. No, Joseph, anything else that you want the audience to know quickly?
No, not really.
Which means opposite, right? Which he would be unleashing as we go on. Let's begin. Black History Month. Your opinions, brothers. Do you think that as people in the diaspora, Black people, do you think that the way we have been celebrating Black history for the past years is in the right direction? Do you think that maybe we should be coming together to do anything more special than what it has been so far? And I'd like to take your quick opinions on this. And let me start with the ladies the first time. And so I'm going to go with Melissa. Do you think, from your observation, do you think that we have been celebrating Black History Month as Afro-diasporans the right way?
Look, you coming right out the gate at the top of the hour and just hitting it with what's in the present right now and in the moment. So I do not actually. And I was just talking about this with a friend of mine, where everything that we are talking about in Black History Month is still celebrated through a white lens, especially through history. Now, I'm not a historiographer by any means, but I know that Blackness as a diaspora also needs to be celebrated. There are tremendous contributions to culture, arts, history, science, STEM, athleticism that is not just going through a Black American historical lens. And even so, a lot of the Black history in America has been subject to erasure, and so we're not even at the entire iceberg of the contributions of Black society within the Americas in and of itself. So I don't think that we're doing ourselves justice celebrating the same 6, 7, 10 iconic Black people, and that's the canon that we're giving to our youth. That's the canon that we are continuing to push in the media. So I think that we have a lot of work to do when we're expanding the diaspora and also diving deeper into the history that's been erased in our due to colonialism and white supremacy.
My brother Fisho, do you want to respond to this quickly?
Well, I mean, I think from a different perspective, as somebody who relocated here not too long ago.
Okay.
Black History Month, we got to learn about what February was about, and the goal was to understand the history. And naturally, when you relocate, you come with your own perspectives or perceptions of little things that you know. I'm sure we'll touch on it later.
Right.
And through it all, you realize every February the history is told of the people, of the Black people in this country. How far back does it go? And then you kind of link it up to what you know, Black history over in, let's take me from Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
You understand a little bit of the slave trade from our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn a little bit about Black History Month, maybe from your children and things that you see on television here. And you realize that although, yes, the idea is there to push Black history, there is still a gap. There's still some knowledge. There's still some information that is either treaded on lightly or not discussed at all. So is the effort being made? Absolutely, yes. There's something being put out there. You can't go out anywhere and say that nobody talks about the history of African Americans in the US. No.
Okay.
Is it enough? Absolutely not.
Okay. More so within the African community, right? And I think I can attest to. You and I can agree to that.
Yeah. There's stuff that we know that is not covered, and there's stuff that is covered that we had no clue about. So we're learning, but we do understand that there is a gap that is missing.
Great.
And our goal as individuals is to take every advantage that we can to teach that missing gap.
That missing gap. That's a great point. Rebecca, quickly, your opinion on this.
I feel like it's already been said. My answer would be no. And I think what I am hoping this conversation will do, and other conversations and work that I'm partaking in, is to get representatives of various regions within the Black diaspora, and not the same people that show up. And often it's a West African narrative. You know, we say African, but it's often a West African narrative, and or people that show up. And then when we're talking about Black History Month, we tend to say, well, that's just African American history. But even within the civil rights movement, even within Cicely Tyson, who just passed away, rest in peace, like, she's of Caribbean descent. So we need to really analyze, like, who is part of this Black history that we speak of. And Blackness is a global term, and it's an umbrella term, and not just a term for a specific identity. And so I think when we talk about that, we'd have a much stronger understanding of the Black diaspora and a greater unity.
Joseph, do you agree to what she just said with regards to Black history being recognized as a global sensation as compared to, like, African Americans Month in the diaspora? I don't know if you wanted to add, comment on that, or maybe just add your voice to what she said and maybe respond to my earlier question.
Well, here's my take on it.
Okay.
We are constantly going through a process of reconstructing everything about Black people or the African diaspora, because the fractionalism, what colonialism did and white supremacy did to us, has splintered us to the point where you have, Black history and various histories based upon those people's experience in terms of the African diaspora. And so what I'm hearing is that we're always trying to put it back together and reconstruct it under the umbrella, of the global citizenry of Black people. And I think that, of course, the main issue around it is that who's educating us in the very beginning about who we are and what history is. So, on that note, it's why so many Black people have fought to have our own schools that teach our children what they need to know to thrive on this planet, and not it be somebody else's narrative of telling us who we are and what our history is and all that kind of. And what's fascinating is that there is so much history that you're discovering things every day. I've been studying Black history since I was a child, and I'm finding out fascinating things every other week about our people, African people, Native American, Caribbean. It's mind blowing. So I think we're still in a process of revolving and figuring out how to connect the puzzle so that it makes comprehensive sense to everyone.
Dr. Melida, quickly, your take.
Well, this is what I believe. First of all, when someone gives you permission to celebrate who you are, that means you're still controlled. You are still oppressed. No one should give you permission to celebrate who you are. You are who you are. And this is one of the problems that we've been having for years. We're always asking permission from our oppressors to give us permission to celebrate who we are. That has to change. I do believe that what everyone said today is correct. Who are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? That's the question. First of all, we need our brothers and sisters in Africa in order to discuss our culture, in order to discuss who we are. Slavery in America, our history started from slavery, according to America. That has to change. And this is why we need our brothers and sisters in Africa to tell us the rest of the story and not start from who we are from slavery.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Romain, please, your take on that.
Again, thank you for allowing me to come at the last minute, and thank you to the guests. I agree with almost everything that was said thus far. However, there's a however component. We keep on forgetting that history is defined as his story. And we keep on forgetting that we allow his story to, to come to the masses. We allowed that fact. Now, it goes back to the conversation you and I had on my show, defining the isms in the Black community, and defining the isms is part of our history. Like what side are you on, and how do we define our culturalism? And culturalism defines that we are like individualism, separatism, and we got to start forming a collectivism, including defining who we are. So the isms is part of, we allow his story to be defined in the masses. So if we got to stop that to allow others to tell our history and describing and defining our isms for us. So that's what I think.
Wow. Romain took us right from, ground level to very high altitude already. So
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Take us there.
Okay.
Black people are not a monolith either. We're not all on the same page, even with history. I love what you just said, Roman. Like, even thinking about how much polarization is in our own Black communities, who's telling the story and from what side of history? I know that a lot of BLM in Chicago is going to be against, other Black radicals. There's just different ways of telling a story, and there's different ways of resistance, and there's different ways of censoring. And so we're not even all of our skin folk ain't on the same page.
Right. Okay, great point. I know, Romain, anybody wanted to comment quickly on what Brother Romain said, or anything else that was said earlier that you wanted to comment on? Please take a, let me, I think you should do that right now before I recognize folks who have joined us on the feed.
I would like to speak since I haven't got
Yeah.
Coming from a PWI to a HBCU, I can definitely tell you right now that we are not doing enough for just by having Black History Month, and we're not doing enough within Black History Month to educate the masses. And just like Brother Romain said, like, where is the story coming from? Like, who is telling this story? I believe that a lot of things that we see in the media are honestly replays of Black History Month every year. Like, I feel like at some point it's starting to be the same things over and over again that we're learning. Whereas whenever I went to an HBCU, I was learning about different things I had never heard before. I feel like slavery and racism in America goes a lot deeper and a lot uglier than what has been revealed to the masses. And because a lot of, I'll say, my generation because we have different diverse backgrounds, and you know, I lived in an area that was very diverse. It had a lot of different races, so I didn't really learn a lot about Black history and certain things until I went to a HBCU, and I was just like, wait, this is who? This happened to them? What?
Right.
Many things that I didn't even understand that had, you know, could be possible. But I feel like because we're not doing enough during Black History Month in those areas where there are a very great diverse group of people, it's causing some divide where there's people who are, you know, colorists, where they're like light skin this, dark skin this, when in all actuality, this Black skin is beautiful. Okay, you look good regardless. Or where they put each other in a social class when it should never be that way. We should all be collective regardless. So I feel like we're not doing enough. And that's
thank you so much for the point you just made, Faith, and to all of you. I'll follow up quickly, but let me just recognize our audience. Ted Williams is watching us. Peter Akwabwa, Cass Thompson is here. Rebecca Mode is also here. Live, love, laugh. She's here as well. Live, love, laugh. Yes, I got it. And Ted says, great point. We should celebrate the diaspora together. We also must recognize that in the U.S., Black history is American history. All Americans must learn these stories. And then Akwaba says, go Fisho. All right. So somebody asked, okay, if she wanted to make a comment. Somebody said if they wanted to call, the number is, I'll give you the number to ring in, but you can pass your comment down here in the comment section and I'll read it out. So we mentioned issues of division. I mean, from what all of you were saying, we have not been celebrating Black History Month, you know, the right way and whatnot. In my opinion, I feel like there are reasons, you know, that are circling within our communities that are preventing us from probably coming together and recognizing Black History Month the way we are supposed to. Again, you also said it very eloquently. And some of these things have been lingering for a very long time. Issue of divisiveness, cultural differences. Your accent is different from mine. You are from this country and I'm from that country. Brother Fisho, you being a Ghanaian and, you know, West Africa, and I must say that this show we tried to do a fair representation of the diaspora, the Afro diaspora, African diaspora, Black diaspora. Some people like to call it different things, but it's all the diaspora, right? It's all about Black people here. But we have, you know, African Americans represented, folks from Africa. We have East Africa, West Africa. We have South America, and we have some Caribbean. All right, not 100% Caribbean. You know, half Caribbean, but we will. In your shows, we have.
I've never heard of that one before. We need to start talking about half and a third
and the quarter and the food. Thank you.
The world. We was just born in these countries.
Thank you. So that is the exact point that I'm coming to, and it's a lot of times the reasons why we are careful with our words is because people take issue, right? If you don't address them in a very specific way. Why do we see ourselves very differently? And why do you think that we haven't? Yes, basically, the question is, why have we seen ourselves very different from each other? Even though, like Dr. Melida said, we are all people of the African origin. Brother Joseph, I saw you jump up, so just go ahead.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, it goes back to the specific experiences that we had in whatever particular region we were in, experiencing colonialism and the onslaught of white supremacy. There's man, for the last 400 years, there's been an anti-Blackness movement. They criminalized Blackness in African culture. They criminalized it. And so, you know, we're still going through the process of dismantling all of that trauma, psychically, spiritually, in our people. So, you know, there have been many of us who saw the beauty and brilliance and genius of Black people, we see it. It's there. It's just you're fighting a system that is in every area of human endeavor, called white supremacy, that is so anti-black that, black folk are anti-black in many ways and don't even know it. The thing that I've had to deal with a great deal is brothers and sisters from different countries and regions, saying that this is what I am. That's what I said. Hey, look, when the cops come at you in the United States,
Exactly.
you don't care if you Jamaican or whatever,
Okay.
they see blackness and they shoot.
Mm-hmm. Can I answer what Joseph said, please?
Yes.
I think one of our biggest problems is this, and this we were taught. Africans from Africa, when they come to the Americas, somehow that they believe that they're different from whether we're from Panama or from Colombia or from America. We have to stop that. We are the one that's still carrying the torch, saying how different we are. We don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to say I am half Jamaican. We don't have to say I am half Panamanian.
Right.
All of us are African.
Right.
And we are the one that's carrying that torch that was taught to us. First of all, we need to change our mindset. That's the first thing that we need to say. First of all, we need to heal from all the damage that has been done to us. I do believe no one can define me. No one is going to call me Afro-Panamanian, Negro, African-American. I am African, period. I was born in Panama due to slavery. When they came to Africa and they brought us here, all of us were in different regions. They placed us all over the place.
Let me jump in. I don't think it's a conscious effort.
Let me finish, sir. Let me finish. Sorry. And the point is this: and I know what he's probably, well, I don't know what he's saying. Say this. We have to stop talking about how different we are. You're coming from Africa, you're African. Now we know that whenever someone name you and give you a title, he already knows you don't know who you are. We have to define ourselves. That's the key here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, Brother Fisher.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a conscious effort to distinguish ourselves from African Americans when you relocate or you get into the new system. I think culturally you learn about yourself no matter where you're brought up, anywhere you're brought up. So I talk about most Africans growing up in Africa. We don't know what racism is. Racism is something that you read in a textbook, but you hardly experience. So you learn about history, and you learn about the slave trade. You learn about your ancestors selling their brothers and sisters to the white man, and the white man coming back later to exchange to get more slaves and move on. So you learn that as history. You learn about the country evolving over years. Then you interact with white people. The white people you interact with mainly are white Peace Corps, missionaries, doctors, teachers. So you get a different perception or perspective of who the white individual is. You grow up in a Commonwealth environment, a mixture of white, black. You have no clue what all this racism stuff is about. And then you relocate to a different culture. You move to the United States of America. Your assumption is you're all similar, mainly because of the color of your skin. And then you evolve. You go through different experiences. Like somebody mentioned, the cops stop you. The first impression when the cop stops you is racism is far from it. You don't even think about it because it doesn't exist. You haven't experienced anything. You don't know anything about it. So it's just an individual of the law, right? And then what happens from there? Stories pick up from there. It goes to negative stuff. I remember one of the first things I knew, first stories I had when I moved here was, I think it was, his name was Diallo, Amadou Diallo.
Amadou Diallo.
Yes, trying to get his wallet out of his pocket, and he was shot so many times. So then the cultural shock begins. And then you start to learn about your new environs, and then who you are now. So your identity management begins. that you start to change individually who you are. So there's a whole lot of becoming a new individual as you assimilate into the United States. The pain of the African American is totally different from that of the African. And it takes a while for one to understand each other. Otherwise, in the beginning, the whole stereotypical thing begins. And when we go through those stereotypes, then it seems like there's a wedge between us.
Yes, we'll come to that. We'll come to the specific stereotypes. But Melissa wants to go ahead, Melissa.
Just really quickly, I love that we're having this conversation, and Dr. Melida, you're like nailing it on the head. I just wanted to contribute to something that I've been experiencing within the Caribbean, because as we want to challenge the notion of self-identity, things like Ancestry.com is really enabling all kinds of audacity in spaces and privilege and access. And so when I think about the ability to self-identify, and that is something that I want to be able to empower us to do, self-identify, that nobody else labels us. As a Black Puerto Rican, I want to actually challenge us to find better and evolving language for ourselves, so that way when we mean Black, we mean Black. If I were to say Afro-Puerto Ricans, there are a lot of Afro-Puerto Ricans going to do their Ancestry.com and say like, oh yeah, no, this is where I'm African, but there is a distinction between xenotype and phenotype. There's a distinction between race and ethnicity, and we're still even trying to grapple the seeds of that. So while I think that it's important to really identify and center Blackness and Africanness, when I say Black, I mean Black as a race, and really start thinking about ethnicity as another layer and start to complicate that conversation a little bit more, because Black in different parts of the world means something different.
Can I add
I
to that?
agree. I agree.
Hey.
I agree too. I do too.
Romain, go ahead.
Okay, I want to add to that because one of the things that I think for the last 5 years, and I cringe, especially when people start saying it and we don't correct them. They use the phrase, and this is our identity, by the way, and it goes back to what I said about the isms and the identification of who we really are. So when we talk about issues, especially government issues, they want to loop us in one category that can define many ethnicities. So we need to watch out for the phrase and start correcting people, a person of color. We need to stop that. We need to stop allowing people to, if you're going to talk about Black issues, talk about Black issues. If you're going to talk about white issues, talk about white issues. I will prefer you to say Black or brown issues, but don't sit there and say a person of color. We're not a damn crayon here.
Exactly.
Now,
It doesn't exist.
do you think that people within the diaspora refer to each other as a person of color? Or I think it's more so of other races referring to Black people as people of color than Africans or people of the African origin referring to each other. I don't think that has been an issue. We call out. We use it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Black people use that word. People of color.
People of color.
Black, African American, Negro.
Well, I have moved away from using BIPOC and mean Alana. Like I mean Alana, and I mean that in that umbrella term. But otherwise, I agree with Roman. It's like if we're talking about Black, we got to say Black. We have to center it, or else people of color means white. White people of color will take up space.
So quickly, do you all
and we need to continue to push back against that?
So quickly, do you all agree with or side with what Dr. Melida said, that we are not part of this, half of that? We just people of African descent or Africans, because there's a lot of pushback to that identity too for a lot of Black people in our community. So would you, first of all, let me know if you all agree to what Dr. Melida is saying when it comes to that. Do you think we should see ourselves as Black people? I mean, Africans.
I would like to jump in here. I want to challenge a couple of things that were said, not because I don't agree, but because I think the conversation is much more complex than saying, hey, let's not look at our differences. I think what, in my opinion, and what's been happening in a lot of the Black diasporas that I've been working in is that we say African, and that's a whole 54 countries. And Africa's already lumped in. Everybody's already like, oh, okay, this whole place is a monolith. So we're actively, even in this conversation, we're doing that. So I think for me and for the people that I have spoken with, it's often been that we have been lumped together, not necessarily that we've been understanding our own perspective identities or celebrating our own perspective identities, then to come together and say, okay, look, now we know our histories, depending on, you know, how you got your history, right? Whether it's from a white lens or whether it's from the oral history that's been taught down from the elders, that's another topic. But once we all know that and everybody is reframing that, and I think I can't remember who spoke on that, but restructuring the Black identity and Black identities is constantly happening, even in places that are homogeneous, right? So for example, in Ethiopia, nobody's saying I'm Black, I'm Black, I'm Black. We all are Black. So it's not a matter of we're trying to be different. It's a matter of it's redundant. And so we need to understand the different types of histories and how imperialism, colonialism, all of that, how it played out and manifested in different regions and different areas before we get to discuss and say, hey, we're all one big Black happy family. Because, I mean, I don't want to use a European comparison, but just for the lack of nothing else that I have to compare it with, like, we're not confusing Italians and Greek people. We're not having these confusions. And I know it's a border. I know it's all just borders. So I understand that too. But I think we have to take certain steps in this direction first before we can get to the goal of what we want as a Black diaspora.
Okay, great.
Until we do that, I don't know if it's going to really happen.
Well, you're right. I know Joseph agrees to that as well. But as a people in the 21st century, in 2021 going forward, how should we be identifying ourselves? Which is always taking me back to Dr. Melida's point. I mean, like, based off what Rebecca said eloquently, there's a lot of history that has gone down. But now that we're here in the diaspora, how should we identify ourselves? It's going to be very difficult if we have to consider how history has played on our identity, but to just look forward to say, look, regardless of what has happened, regardless of the different shades of the stories, we know in this day, in this age, that we are people of the African origin. And so let's identify ourselves as one thing. Either we are Africans or we're just Black people. And I think that it would help for us to, because once we can identify as one group of people, it helps us in trying to work together. Seeing us from different shades and identifying based on our history and all that, it makes it difficult for us in moving forward. But it's just my opinion.
I would like to speak on that as well. I thought Rebecca's point was very valid. I just feel like, well, personally, from my own opinion, I want to know how that can actually be brought on in this 21st century. Because, I mean, for me, like, I've done my ancestry before, and I'm 87% African. However, I have African, roots from like Ghana and Kenya and Nigeria and Ethiopia. So it's so many different areas. So like for someone like me who has a very diverse background, it's almost like, well, which one do I celebrate? Which one do I learn more about? How do I relate to others around me? Because if you think about it, there's over about 300, 400 years of history that I would have to learn off rip. And that's not even including the, the slave traders who might have, raped my people or, caused my line to happen like this. So I feel like that's a great point. However, I don't know how that could actually be enacted in the present day because of how, I wouldn't say mixed, but how 54 countries in Africa can well, 54 countries in Africa can come into like one body. So I mean, like, I may have like 20 different, you know, origins of descent from Africa, but which one do I celebrate? What if I'm 25% from Ethiopia, 24% from Kenya? I just feel like at some point that's when it starts the isms again, where somebody's like, where I'm this or I'm that, or they feel prideful about they come from here, they may have blood from here.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that a lot in, you know, my age group, where they're like, well, they got girls on Twitter that still put mixed girl or Blasian or Blexican. So I mean, I feel like it's my viewpoint.
Can I answer her?
Yes. Dr. Melida, before you come in, so let me just this a little thing, and then you can respond to that too. To Rebecca's point, you know, you can confuse. I mean, the Greeks, Germans, you know, French, but there's a bigger identity which is common. Europeans, right? They have the Schengen, you know, so you don't see, even though there are different countries, you don't see the difference. It's just one people, Caucasians, white people, Europeans. So we also have to move towards a direction where there's too many shades of us. Caribbean, African, even the Africa, there's plenty spots.
I was just going to add, even if you're 100% from Ghana, there are the whole differences.
The tribal differences, right?
Yeah, it's all, and you can bring it down to that, and you know, there's the conflict between tribes. One tribe looking down on the other. Exactly. It's a whole different kind of melting pot.
True, and that is the point I was trying to make. But Dr. Melida, go ahead.
This is what I want to say to clear up a lot of things. I want to say this. First of all, the continent was not divided the way it is today. There was no Nigeria. There was no Kenya. There was no South Africa. That happened when colonializers came into Africa and divided the continent. Now, when have we ever heard a Chinese saying, I'm a descendant of China? When an Italian ever said, I'm a descendant of Italy? They don't say that. They just say that they are Italian, they are Chinese, they are Europeans. We are the ones that are saying what we're saying because we've been taught that. Now, going back to the continent was one. And you are divided today because of the colonializers. And we need to, for example, I was born in Panama, right? But there's a diversity in Panama. By the way I look and the Spaniards, you know, there's a difference there. But I am not going to continue to say that I am Afro-Panamanian or anything like that, because once you accept those things, now they still know that you are still oppressed, and you are still, no matter where American goes, let me put it to you that way. They go to Africa, they come to my country, you know what they're gonna say? I'm American. They would never say I'm half American. Even though they're from Italy, they still say they are American. Right. So we have to start thinking about what direction do we want to go to? Right. We have to define who we are and not allow others to define us.
I think that if I could add to that, I think there's a certain pride in where your ancestors are from. And I don't recall, but I do remember when I went to grad school in the Midwest, and I know that they had Irish American Day. They would have green. They would all dress up in green or stuff like that. And they had Italian Americans who also celebrate their heritage, talking about their ancestors came from different places. So there's really nothing wrong with celebrating your heritage along that side. You can still celebrate that and yet under one body come together.
Exactly.
I think there's really nothing wrong with saying I am African American or I am Nigerian American, whatever it is. That's still okay.
Yes.
And there are different umbrella we could come together. But I do know that I don't know if it's not the same, but I do remember at least the Irish American one. I do remember, and they used to wear green stuff. Green hat.
They're celebrating
Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day, exactly.
They're celebrating their ethnicity. Right. Yeah.
And St. Patrick, by the way, ran. He was famous for running the Druids, which were of African descent, out of Ireland, and they were in Ireland and highly developed spiritual people, descended from the ancient Egyptians. That's what St. Patrick is famous for.
It all comes from
I wanted to say one thing about.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to say this about us seeing ourselves as one people, even though we have different ethnicities and varying cultures. Militarily, white folk think militarily about how to oppress us. They apply military thinking to us to conquer and divide us. And one of the ways they do that is by looking at, of course, skin color, because it's an easy thing to stigmatize. But if you look anywhere, the people who are being oppressed the most are the dark people. And the only way that we can fight back with any real sense of power is through our solidarity and unity. That is why they murdered Fred Hampton, because he was about to unite a whole bunch of people, white, black, Latinx, whatever. He was getting ready to do it. It's one of the biggest problems. They were watching that Martin Luther King was doing it, but then he was getting ready to come at them from a whole nother economic angle. But the point I'm trying to make is that we must understand military strategy, because we're all dealing with the tools of the oppressor, whether it is through lack of resources, miseducation, occupying our communities, murdering our leaders, spiritual warfare. It is military strategy. We have never deconstructed how they destroyed the Black movement. We never taught our kids, sat down and taught our children what they did to destroy SNCC, Nation of Islam, which is the only one that's come back. You know, the Black Panthers. We don't look at the strategy used, which was divide and conquer, mold traders, all that kind of stuff. That's stuff that we don't want to think about and deal with, because we're dealing with a man who has a long history of using all those strategies on the people he wants to subjugate. And then if you want to understand more about his constructs of how he controls us, you need to get this book right here.
Come on, plug.
Or Isabel Wilkerson. This will break down to you how the United States, Germany, and even South Africa constructed caste systems to control the people they want to control by creating social norms and then policies and then whole ideologies to. That's what we need to be teaching our children, what we need to teach in ourselves.
Okay. All right. So
now can I jump in for one second?
Yes.
Only one.
Yes, because you have
only one.
One.
Okay.
All we get is one set.
Okay. To my brother's point, Joseph here, we got to realize that we wasn't just here. Now we got to look at the Reconstruction era. You know, we got to look at a lot of people don't know where Mr. Gorley, who was an entrepreneur, and he was the creator of the Black Wall Street. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Black Wall Street, the envision of him. So if we allow people to define us and define our history, and every single time we don't correct them, and we have government officials that goes back to after Reconstruction era that try to correct the wrongs, but we allow the what we call media now to actually say, well, this is why, and if we don't define the why. Okay, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did we don't ask the questions. Why do you all of a sudden, for decades, it was decades, but now 5 or 6 years ago, I'm a person of color now. I'm representing, but we don't correct that. Okay. So to my brother's point is, we look at government. We have banks already. We have this already. So when people say we don't have, it's kind of like we don't go back to the playbook of our history and say, okay, why did we didn't expound on that? Why didn't we develop the playbook like we used to have.
Okay.
Let's start from that point and then expand.
The 1 second is way past. No, I was just Melissa.
But solid points. Solid points drop.
Of course, just messing with my brother. Go ahead. You wanted to make a point, Melissa. So I wanted to just chip in. I just want you to chip in. Yeah.
I'll take my 1 second. Is that I love the fact that Roman, that you mentioned media and along the conversations that Dr. Melida and Joseph and Faith were having about a unifying voice. I think that while we have these principles and ideologies in mind, I always like to think about the action. And as an organizer, as an activist, and as a person that's also really thinking about how we go about it, it's the action steps for me. And so when we think about how social justice and movements look different now than it did in the 60s and 70s, and now we have these things called platforms, right? We're looking at narratives and the stories that we put out and how we utilize narrative through the media, through TV and film, through the arts, through storytelling. The power of storytelling is so important. And until we can actually use the empowerment of self-identification, then at that point when we have platform, then at that point when we have access to larger narratives, we can really set an impact on how we move. The way that the way that social media has activated us and even infected us in misinformation, disinformation, and empowerment, we're looking at a really beautiful movement right now with young people, with technology, where we can utilize this voice. And if we can control the narrative first, then we can actually make an impact on how we're unifying and being in solidarity. But you know what? Right now, TV and film want to put me in Black roles. And I feel a particular way about going in for Black roles because they see me as a Black woman, but a safe enough Black woman that is not as dark and that my hair looks a particular way. And I'm not going in there to try to decenter myself in that narrative. I'm going in there to say actively, that is not how I identify, and that is not how I want that narrative to be portrayed. So it is important to be in solidarity, and my solidarity is to decenter myself in those privileges and center other people.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I got to jump off because I have to go to rehearsal. I'm in rehearsal for a play called The Meeting, which is a fictional meeting between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. It's fascinating, the conversation they had, because they're touching on a lot of stuff we're talking about. But
you see One Night in Miami? That's great.
Say it again.
I said, did you see One Night in Miami too? Because I love having these the fly in the wall meeting rooms. This is great.
Absolutely.
Have a great rehearsal.
You talked about storytelling, and one of the ways that we change the narrative and tell our story is, of course, through theater, film, art, what have you. So the thing that I didn't share, that I'm going to share about me, is that my latest work is called Reparations. It's a play that connects the continent of Africa to our experiencing to the United States, to the present, in terms of the plunder that happened on the African continent as well as in the United States. But it's a musical. I'm not calling it a musical. I'm just calling it Reparations. And the reason why I wrote it is because so many of our people don't understand what was robbed from us, what was taken from, the level of plunder. And so there's apathy toward fighting for reparations. There's apathy toward trying to connect with your brother and sister, even though you may have a disagreement. There's apathy toward reaching across, culturally and connecting, because you don't understand what happened to us.
Exactly.
And so that's one of the reasons why the piece was written, so that we can have these collective communal experiences to restore collective historical conscious memory, so that we can begin to act more in accord in terms of moving together and thinking about blah, blah, blah. Anyways, that's my spiel, and I got to run.
Thank you, Joseph.
Love you all. Wonderful conversation.
Have a good one, man.
Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Have a good one, man.
Yeah.
Wow. How I wish he stayed on with all that fire he has, right? A great point. It's a minute past 7 p.m. here in the studios of the Progressive Minds. We're located in Chicago. It's been interesting so far. Great panelists having awesome intellectual conversations about the diaspora and our society. We will take a short break. When we come back, I would like us to talk about the specific stereotypes, brothers and sisters, like all the stereotypes that we've had against each other. I want us to go into some of the specifics when we come back after this break. If you're watching us on Facebook, we urge you to share it on the and on YouTube as well. This is the Progressive Minds. I am your host, Alinko. After this short break, we shall continue the conversation and open the phone lines when we come back. Stay tuned.
Check out this beautifully made artistry of coffee tables made from a combination of recycled tires, jute ropes, wood, and fabric to suit your style. Yes, we make to order. These coffee tables can help you make a statement in your bedrooms, offices, and living rooms. But remember, we only ship within the USA and Canada after shipping cost is paid. Call Jasper Designs on 1-306-203-2650 or email us at doduyayra@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at Jasper Love or follow Pearl Yara Agboka on Facebook. Don't be left out. Please place your orders now.
We are back on the Progressive Mind Show. Please remember to share the feed if you're watching on Facebook and on YouTube so we can get the word out. Also, visit our website. If you feel encouraged to support what we're doing, it's the progressivemindshow.com. It's being carried live by MyStar Radio all the way in Washington, D.C. It is a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. It's also on Trend Africa TV. This evening, we are talking about the Diaspora Convo Part 2, and it's been interesting so far. Ladies and gentlemen, specifically, let's try and deal with some of the stereotypes that we have had against each other. Melissa, I know within the Afro-Latina community, there are things that we will whisper, among each other about Africans, or African Americans and vice versa. We do all of that. I would start with, I don't know about East Africans. I don't know about East Africans, but as a West African, I know some of the things that I can attest to, a lot of the stereotypes that we have when it comes to the African American community and also even the Afro-Latina community. And so, what are some of the things that we have known about each other that we think of this of ourselves that we have to do away with? Dr. Melida, I know you have to leave, but I would like you to respond to that if you don't mind.
Well, first of all, the word Afro, Latina, I don't accept.
Okay.
Because we have been given so many names. And we have given names like mulata, and it might sound pretty and nice, but the history behind it is when a Black woman is mixed with a white with another race, which is white. The word mula is a mule, and during slavery, that's what they would call us, a mule, carrying the cane. So I don't accept that. I have never, when I discovered what it really means, I totally, disregard it.
Right.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that we don't even know the history of it. Words can be so devastating because of the fact that we don't know our own history. So, like I said before, and I love what Melissa and all of you are saying, and one of the things that Rebecca said is true. They don't have any concern about Black issues because everyone is Black. We're in Latin America, because I'm also have family in the Caribbean. It's different because we're dealing with other races. And dealing with insults. We're dealing with all sorts of things. There's pain. And one of the things that I want to say, I love what Melissa said. Now what? What about the action? What action are we taking? We can sit here and talk all day about black and white, but what are the actions? Let me tell you the actions that I have started. And that is, I created the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce. And that 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce is about us doing business with each other. Because if we don't have funds, if we don't have the business, if we're not trading with each other, we are lost. I noticed when Senna introduced me, he said, I'm from South America. Now that is something that is often said by Americans, when in fact, I'm from Central America. But let me tell you why most Africans say that Latin America is South America. It is because that's what you've been taught. They don't want you to do business beyond Brazil. They want you to do business in Brazil because they have colonialized you and they are in Brazil. It's the same thing of Europe. You do more business in Europe than you do in the rest of the world. And what we are doing in the 6th region, we are now opening up the doors for you to do business in Latin America, in the Caribbean, and also in other words, in the Americas. So when you want to refer Latin America and America together, you will say the Americas. That starts all the way from Brazil, all the way to the America.
Es el sueño de Bolívar. Es el sueño de Bolívar.
Exactamente. Exactamente.
Yep. So,
okay, I see you. I see you.
Because this is very important for your audience to understand. And this is why I keep pushing, everything that we have learned thus far in history most of it is a lie. We have to go back now. Now, what I am doing, not only about business, I am in touch with kings and queens in Africa, because it's time for kings and queens in Africa to come to the Americas and atone, reunify with their children that was taken from Africa. And guess what? It's being done as we're speaking. So what I am saying is there's a time for healing. We cannot keep going through these things that you are Latina de Bolivia, Latina de America. No, we have all been separated. We have all been brought here. We just need to bring that back and start working with our brothers and sisters. And this is why I ask the kings and queens, come back to America. Come and atone for your children that you never came for. We are considered the lost children. And guess what? It's being done. Once we begin to heal, that's when we can start doing business. That's when we can start trading with each other. And I just want that message to go out to my African brothers and sisters in Africa. You have been colonialized and we have been enslaved. Enough is enough. Let us all come together. That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. Dr. Melida, you mentioned that you do business in Central America and Latin America with the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce. 2 follow-up questions quickly. I didn't hear Africa. Do you do business in Africa as well?
As I said before, the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce, just the 6th region is us.
Okay, so there are a lot of people.
Yes, we do business with Africa. Yes, okay. That's the purpose. Yes. Okay,
great. There are a lot of people who are listening what is 6th region? And that's I wanted to get a clarification. What is 6th region?
Sure. The African Union created the 6th region. Africa has 5 regions: North, South, East, West, Central. They created the 6th region. The 6 regions are Africans that have left Africa for a better opportunity in the world. But they really never talk about us, those that was enslaved in the Americas. But what we're doing now is that the 6th region, it is bringing together those that have left Africa and us here in the Americas. In order for us now to unite, to come together. That is the 6th region.
That is powerful. So it basically encompasses every Black person that lives outside the continent or the continent of Africa. Okay, that's very powerful.
That's right.
Fisho, you've been a Ghanaian, and we know, and I would like Melissa to respond to this too. Thank you, Dr. Melissa, for your submission. Again, I want us, even though we want to move forward, there are certain negative stereotypes that we've had against each other, or we've had about each other, that I want us to be able to go into. What are some of the things that you know within the African community that we think of, or that within African communities that that you know exist about the African American community? In other words, what are some of the negative stereotypes that has always been in existence? The things that we talk about the African American community. Tisho, if you want to, if you know some specific, let me, if you can share.
I mean, I don't think I want to go in particular into the negative. It just brings out a lot of pain, and there's no, we don't gain anything from that pain.
Okay.
But in 2001, my thesis was on a tale of two cultures, the distancing of the African and the African American. So I went through it in detail from a theoretical point of view.
Okay.
Did a little bit of research that brought out the practical aspect of it, and through that you could get the pain from both sides. Mm-hmm. And as I think I'd mentioned earlier, we there's certain things that there's a learning experience that you get from both sides when you speak to them.
Right.
Pain of the African, as I mentioned, it's a little different from that of the African American, and vice versa.
Okay.
We know this, the pain of the slave trade that brought, that created a part of history that you want to forget. And,
okay.
And I had a long dialogue initially when I was doing my research.
Mm-hmm.
There's the African American attack that the white man bought the slaves, the white man bought slaves. And I said, well, yeah, from that perspective, on our side, we also learned that it was our people who actually started that process. The white people came in to trade with alcohol and stuff. And then we offered, slaves along those lines. So it's a certain pain. We have, you have, some of us will have relatives that were actually, slave traders. And it's a part of your history that you're definitely not proud of. And so that's, we tend to catch up on the things that we've messed up out there. But one other thing that I like, or what is coming out, a theme that is coming or recurring from today's conversation is the action.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, and anytime you have a community or a discussion like this, it would all come up.
Right.
What's the action? What are we doing?
Right.
I know that Dr. Barrow mentioned the sixth region, which is excellent. Mm-hmm. And I know from a Ghana perspective, in 2019 represented 400 years exactly when the first slave ships got to Virginia. Mm-hmm. So the year of return in Ghana 2019 was huge. Diaspora, encouraging African diasporans to come to Ghana in particular, to settle, to invest in the continent. They were made citizens, and some have actually relocated. You find videos of people talking. So that's the beginning of a process.
Right.
So they're actually back home. You're actually a citizen of Ghana. So you have that American blend, and then you have your roots itself, or you're part of it. So the Ministry of Tourism, and it's helped them as individuals invest into a country that their great grandparents also were from. So the stories that they've heard from ancestors, they can actually verify.
Right.
I've been to, I'm sure you have to, the Cape Coast Castle, the Amina Castles.
Yeah.
I spend just an hour, but you come back. There's nobody who walks in and comes back the same.
The same, right?
Go through all those experiences, and so you see these things, and then you know that these are things that will tell a story on their own. And these are some of the things when we started, we were talking about Black History Month. Are they doing enough? These are some of the things that I wish that stories of these are told a lot more in the month of February than just stick to the stories our kids tell you all the time. Oh, Martin Luther King. Yes, those are great.
But Angelo, how can you, can I just say this, Angelo, how can you not talk about the issues? And you said, we don't want to deal with the negative. The negative is... No,
I said, right now.
We have to really, just let me say this. Yeah. We have to talk about these things, and we can talk about it in a positive way for us not to do the things that we're doing to each other. There has to be a healing. The healing starts from discussing what the problem is and then proceed to fix the problem in order for us now to unite.
Right.
We cannot deny what's happening.
Yeah. Let me make this announcement before.
Can I jump in for 1 second? Just
I'll let you jump in, but let me just make that announcement real quick. Some people want to call in, so the number to ring if you want to contribute is 815-277-5047. 815-277-5047. If you want to comment or ask a question, you can ring now and do that.
Put it in the chat so that people can see the number, because I don't think that they're catching the number. Can you put the number in the chat?
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll do that right now. Okay. Go ahead. It's 815
banner. Okay.
277-5047. And yes, if you see the flyer on social media, it's on there as well. But Romain, please go ahead and make your point quickly.
I think Rebecca wanted to jump in first, so I'll give her, and then you can come back to me.
Okay. Before Rebecca comes in, just to add to what Dr. Melida said, you see, most of us, I would say most of us here are on this platform. Of course, we are here for a reason. And I'll say that all of us on this platform have, well, of course, we're open-minded and have a lot of information when it comes to what we're already talking about. And so we already get it. But there are tons of us in our communities and out there who still hold on to these stereotypes. And sometimes the purpose of us openly saying it, will trigger or will create that awareness that, hey, if you are calling or thinking of this people or, thinking of the other person as this, you are probably thinking the wrong way, because here is the reason why they probably do things the way they do. So through these conversations, we might bring awareness to some of the things that a lot of people don't already know. And so that's just to add to what Dr. Melida said. We come here and we have open conversations, because guess what? We will go home and talk about it privately. And so there's
exactly.
So why don't we bring it up and have a
talk about it? Yeah. Because I've experienced it. I have experienced it when I first came to this country in 1976.
Yeah.
Where because I'm Panamanian, Africans would talk to me and they would say things about African American, and I told them they're the one that built this country in order for us to be here. Which is important. So we cannot keep denying the things that we do and then trying to, override it. We want to talk about it. That's how we begin the healing.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I have to go. I love all of you.
Hello.
Right.
We have a question. We have a question on the line.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.
Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and why you're calling.
Yes, my name is Humu.
Yes.
Isifu.
Can you turn down the device you're listening or watching us
on? I'm sorry. Yes. So my name is Humu Isifu, and I just wanted to comment that I have two. How can I say it? I experienced both life. I came here. I was in Ghana. I grew up in Ghana. Born and raised in Ghana. I came here as an immigrant with my mother. When I came here, I was taught to erase my history, not from my parents, but from the school system. And while we're talking about Black history, I feel like Black history should be every day throughout the year. And every day as parents, we need to educate our children about our history. Because I now work for Chicago Public School. I work up north. I work at a very privileged, I would say, school. Now before I worked there, I used to work on the south side, the east side. So I've been in the school system for over 10 years now with Chicago Public School. Me working up north, the percentages of African-American students up there is about 5%. Out of 100. I wanted to leave that school. When Black History Month come and we do an assembly, they do not want to start off with slavery. They want the kids to immediately just forget about slavery. But as I was on the committee, I told them, I said, I cannot do it. If we can't go back and let these students know who they are, if we're going to erase slavery, let's get rid of the I can't think of what happened. I'm talking too much, but let's get rid of the white
fine. Go ahead.
You get what I'm saying?
No, go ahead.
of the white history. Let's forget about what Adolf Hitler did. You know,
The Holocaust.
let's forget about all of that, because that's not fair for you all to immediately not. So just go way back just to take away or deprive the African American students because it makes the whites uncomfortable. You don't think it made our people uncomfortable? That you don't think it makes the students uncomfortable? That they ancestors, you know, great generation after generation went through this, and we still going through this. Like Dr. Melissa said, if I'm not mistaken her name,
Yes.
like she said, we need to know the problem, and we need to acknowledge that this is a problem, and this is still 300 plus years of oppression we still going through. You get what I'm saying? When I came here, people, CPS, the kids are mean. Kids only listen to or model what they see. Kids are like wet cement. Anything that falls on them makes an impression. And I'm just here to say, as a parent, and all the parents are listening, we have to educate our children on our history if we're going to go anywhere as people. We're going to go anywhere as people.
Wow.
African American is a big stereotype between African and people from Africa and people who got the African descendants, African American. I have friends who told me why they don't like Africans, because Africans feels like they different. And I have African friends who told me the same thing, vice versa. And I'm like, we are all as one people, no matter what. One drop of black blood in you automatically make you an African American.
Right.
Okay. So why is it that we all can't come? What the tactic that they use, the European use, is divide and conquer. They divide us and then conquer all of us.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people need to stay woke. And that's what I'm saying. It's not going to get better until we educate our future generation, which is our children.
Right.
Because we are adults. We know what's going on. But we have to educate. We have to fight for our children. Just like our ancestors fought for us. Just like your ancestors. We have to now, my generation, I'm 26 years old. I have to fight for my child. I have to educate my child so she can educate her kids. Because if I don't, what they planning to wipe out our race is definitely going to happen. And I'm very compassionate about my history.
Yeah.
I'm African and I'm proud. I'm black and I'm proud. Nobody can. I make my voice heard. I'm a black woman and I make my voice heard.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah.
And I just want parents to understand the number one thing. We are our first educator of our child. This school system, I work in it. I work in the school system. They are not educating your kids about their history. And if you want your kids to know who they really are and where they came from and the struggle they came from, to break this cycle of poverty, to break the cycle, you got to start with your kids right now as I'm talking.
Right.
So that's all I just wanted to say. We are all one, no matter if you from Brazil, you got Afro-Latina, X. If you from Jamaica, if you from East Africa, West Africa, we are all one, and we all need to stay together, and we all need to help each other. Right. You know what I'm saying? And get rid of these stereotypes that we don't want to help each other.
Absolutely.
Black people don't want to help each other. Black people are dirty. We are lazy. Come on now. This don't need to be. When black people built this country, black people built America. You were so lazy why we couldn't go. And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The things that happened in the Capitol building. I guarantee you, if this was an African American people that was going in the Capitol building like this, we would have all been shot and dead.
Humu,
do you hear me?
No, we hear you. We hear you. Thank you so much. You've made a lot of great points, and we appreciate your contribution this evening. It's very
no problem.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And we appreciate you being in CTU. We're standing in solidarity with the teachers in Chicago at CTU and everything that you're being subjected to through the teachers union and through the city of Chicago. Thank you for just being a teacher and sticking through and being a parent in this pandemic and with the demographics and the lack of support and accessibility to healthcare and the way it is. You are a fucking champion and you're the true hero tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's why I don't want to leave my kids, because in that school, I'm all they have. You see what I'm saying? It's only 5%, and they look, and these are kids who, you know, of course, we know with the system, they can only let so many people in the neighborhood. So Coburn Greens, you remember Coburn Greens? These are students from that. So they are already of low income, you know, status students. They come to me about everything, you know. We can own.
Well, we're in solidarity with you. Thank you for everything you do.
No, thank you, and I love the show. Keep coming, because we got to educate. We got to educate this. We got to educate our community.
Thank you.
We have to, or we're going to lose them. We have to. It takes a village. It'll go back to Africa. It takes a village.
Right.
So we got to help each other. Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Our pleasure. And that was from Humu. If you want to call and make a contribution, it's 815-277-5047. Great point.
I think what she described is more of a system, right? Systemic racism. I'll put it that way, which is huge. Like it's a diluted system that's being taught to our kids about Black history.
Right.
And I'm glad she added on there that she's doing her own due diligence as an individual, as a parent, to tell her children the truth.
Okay.
But she can't leave it alone. She can't leave them to the system to really tell them who they are.
Right.
And that's one thing that those of us who know should not hesitate to do that.
Okay. So
part of
great. And another very important point that she made is, and again, I'm not scared in saying these things open, because we have to. At the end of the day, we have to. The truth is that she made a point that some Africans refer to African Americans as some of the words that she used: lazy, and some of this negative. They don't want to work. Their promiscuity and all of that. But we as Africans also know that in our community, we have traits of this. We have these characteristics. If you go to Ghana, if you go to Africa, everything that we describe of the African American community, we have that times 10. I've been in Africa, so I know what it is. And so that when we call the African American community names, and maybe the Afro-Latina names, and they also call us names, you know, I'm sure they have some names for us. It is just self-destruction, just perpetuating self-destruction over again. So we have to be honest to ourselves. We cannot hide as though, okay, these things don't exist. They do exist, and it is hindering us from working together and moving towards what we are talking about. That, you know, that space where we have to get to as African or as Black people, these things that we think of each other, if we are not truthful to ourselves to understand, why do I think of these people this way? And is there a reason why they do this? What can I talk to them to find out the real truth? And then whilst we interact with each other, we may probably learn things that we may have, you know, conceived that may not necessarily be true. I am not saying that we finger point each other because we purposely want to do that. A lot of the notions and perceptions are as a reason of as the result of history, media, and hearsay. And they may not necessarily be the truth. The truth will be. Go ahead.
Can I jump in just for 1 second? And I know Rebecca wanted to jump in too.
Yeah.
So let me just jump in for a second, because I think it goes back to what I said earlier in the show. What is our isms? What side are we on? And the identification, it goes back to that. And I think it was answered, but let me go down to the negativity, and then I'm going to go to the positivity.
Right.
The African culture, and I'm going to say some, and I'm not saying all, but they view us as African Americans as lazy, entitled, extreme, because they view us as being extra. We are violent towards each other. And Blacks, we view Africans as, you abandoned us. You are an elitist towards us. And you don't want to be a part of us. And it goes back to the individualism and the separatism. Here's the common ground that I think we can work on, that Dr. Melinda have said, and I wanted to ask this question, is the common ground and I can answer the other question. The common ground is what the Black community call hustle, you called entrepreneurship. We call it our hustle. So when you guys have braid shops and stuff like that, we have barber shops. We have this, that, and the other. So the common ground, I think, is entrepreneurship, and the common goal is investing, because Africans, we embrace African culturalism, but we don't see culturalism embraced in the Black community. Now, let's go a little bit further, because we talked about media. Let's go to the specifics of media. The hip hop culture has defined the African American community, and I'm going to name artists. So I'm sorry, bruz, if I get you in trouble here. But artists like Lil Wayne has defined us and defined the Black woman as in the sexualism and making Black women sexual. And she doesn't know her truth or her history. So we do it through the hip hop, which is defined to me as hypocrisy. The hip hop generation, which we are defined as in the Black community, has defined us as a whole. That's why I said we got to get away and start correcting them, saying, no, we cannot play this no more. So the sister like Melissa and Rebecca and Faith are defined by Lil Wayne, Little John, and all of them. Like, you got big butts, but they don't know the big butts came from Sarah Bartman. And know our history, because before there was twerking, guess what? The white man sit there and say, go down low, how low can you go? And stick your chest out and wave your legs up. And now we do that as a sexual dance, as twerking, but that was his story. And again, we go to his story. We don't go by Black, our story. We don't go about our story and how we define. So we allow hip hop to define a Black woman, how define our identity. So that's what I think.
Okay. So great point. Yes.
You can add to that just quickly. You described it.
Melissa has been waiting to say something.
Oh, okay.
No, Rebecca has been. I want to give that forward to Rebecca.
Rebecca, go ahead.
Thank you, y'all. Normally I'm like bout it rowdy in other contexts, but I'm trying to, just let myself sit in my thoughts and listen to what everybody's saying. So I have a lot of comments, and I'm just gonna be pretty succinct. First of all, somebody messaged that because of my ethnicity, that I may not address my Blackness or understand my Blackness. I'm trying to find the comment, and I want to bring that up into the conversation, because this is an issue that happens because of a lack of understanding. I already mentioned this, and I feel like if we understood this as a Black collective, then it could help us take another step forward into unity. People in Africa who are from homogeneous countries do not say Black, because it's redundant. It's not because we don't identify as Black people. It's because we don't have to do that. We don't got to say that. We're not with other people. So number one, I'm going to just address that. Number two, something that we didn't really discuss is or negate, is this idea of, Africans sold people into slavery. So let's get into context here. Every country around the world had slaves and sold slaves to other people. Okay, this is not a Black thing. This is not a white thing. This is not a Latin American.
Let me interject. African Americans never sold slaves. Let's get that correct. African Americans never. Every history, every race have indulged in slavery, but not the African American community.
Sure. So, but what I'm saying is, when we say that, we have to bring context into that. We can't just be like, oh, African Americans are selling slaves, or I'm sorry, African people are selling slaves. First of all, kindly, I would really like if we spoke from our country of origin, right? Because I don't want to say this is what all Africans did. That's not true. I don't want to say certain things I want to be as accurate as possible, but I know coming from an African community or immigrant community, and because of feeling othered in this country, Africans, whether from north, south, east, west, we tend to say African because we have collectively decided like we are similar because we're facing the same things coming into this country.
You're right.
So I just want to clear those things up. But when we say that, that gives ammo to white people, white folks to be like, oh, you guys sold us. You guys did it too. So it's not wrong that we did it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to be clear about that. Another thing I want to bring up is erasure. Something that I feel like we aren't discussing is this concept of erasure from those who know where their cultural background is. Because at the end of the day, you know, I understand the borders are man-made. We know that. But if we're trying to say we are one people, right, that is ignoring a lot of other things that people have held closely because Black culture or Black identity has already been erased in so many ways, in so many different contexts. So it's erasure after erasure after erasure. And then now people are like, okay, we're all one people. So erase what you have identified as so far. And I think we have to be really careful when we're talking about how we unite, because I don't think we have to unite by ignoring our differences. That is something that I don't agree with. We don't have to unite that way. We can unite by acknowledging our differences and then acknowledging the similarities and then taking those steps forward.
Right.
But without acknowledgement in certain areas and just saying like, oh no, this is what we are right now. That's not going to happen. People in Africa fight each other between borders. There are so many ethnicities in Ethiopia. In one country that is a very proud country, by the way, people still fighting over differences, over similarities. So I just don't see this being a realistic approach. It's a beautiful idea, but I don't see it being very practical to change, to have a mind shift or a mindset change that we want. The end goal is the same, but I think we have to really look at the approach and how we do that. And then lastly, or two other things, Dr. Melinda said Europeans don't say descendant. Well, that's because that's a historical reason for that. So we can't use that as an excuse. Like, and for in Faith's point, how would we, if she has all of these African countries or identities within her lineage, right? That's because of a certain history. I don't want to erase that and tell somebody how to identify, right? She is going to have to choose how she identifies, and other African American people who have that particular type of history are going to have to choose for themselves. Yeah. And it's okay to choose all of them. It's okay to choose one. That's up to you. But to say that we're just all one people is erasing how history has manifested in all of these other countries. And then oftentimes we try to unite through trauma. We try to unite through imperialism and colonialism. That's fine. But we also have other ways to unite. There's also food. There's like so many different ways to unite. And I urge us to look into that and to adopt that. And then one more thing, somebody said POC, I think it was Roman or Roman. I want to challenge that, not saying I agree, but we can't say, oh, POC is colors when we're using colors to identify ourselves. So we're saying POC, and oh, that's a shade, that's a color, it's not crayons. Black is a color, white is a color. So although I understand what you're saying, we're literally using what we're negating to identify ourselves. So we have to stray away from that as well.
Okay, so great point, and we have a call on line. Let's try and see.
Yes,
go ahead.
I am so sorry. I'm just so addicted to the show because I'm very compassionate about my African American history.
Yes.
And this is Miss Isifu again. Everything Rebecca just said and everything you all just said. I remember when I went to Kennedy King College for my associate's degree. Now I'm pursuing my master's degree in social work.
a Black professor showed me this film, and I want you all to just look at it if you all have it, and all the viewers as well. It's called John Henry Clark, A Great and Mighty Walk. I'm telling you all, when I looked at this, it gave me a whole new perspective of history and how they use religion. I'm not even going to go there, but how they use religion, how we all was from Africa as a civilization. And as soon as migration started, some people was closer to the equator. That's where the dark skin is. Some people was away from the equator and everything. It just breaks out everything from way before slavery and how they took a picture of Michael D'Angelo, if I'm not mistaken his name, and made him Jesus. And for the white people to tell the Africans that this is God. You get what I'm saying? This is who you all should worship. I mean, it just went deep, and I just wanted to just say that for the viewers, and also if you all get a chance. I mean, it was very educational, and it was just everything. It was popping, yo. It was everything. It's John Henry Clark, A Great and Mighty Walk. It's like four different chapters that he was just talking.
Okay.
And he died now, but he's a great educator.
Okay.
So,
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Humo, for your contribution.
I want to respond quickly. Go ahead.
She's been waiting to speak. So Melissa and then Faith can. Yeah.
Okay.
Melissa, go ahead.
Well, I actually wanted to respond to some of the things that Roman was saying, because I think while we are starting to navigate these kinds of conversations, or especially around stereotype, right? I also want us to continue to challenge the notion of within our own stereotypes, where they come from, what lens, because if we are not even grappling with our relationship to capitalism and patriarchy, those notions, like hip hop doesn't define my woman identity. Hip hop does never define my woman identity, ever. You know, it also carries no weight in my life on how I am viewed, right? It carries a weight in the media, and some of those stereotypes are damaging in the media, in that framework. So, you know, I think we have to also continuously say, like, slavery was an early form of capitalism. When we put a value and we endow and we exploit someone's value, we are constantly having to think about, when we say, you know, Black Africans sold other Africans. This happened around the world. Egyptians had slaves. You know, like we had, you know, Europeans in different parts of the country. There was slavery because it was a commodification of the humanity. It was an exploitation of labor. When we think about capitalism, I want to continuously liberate ourselves from the ideology. I'm not talking about, you know, I think Black economic liberation is important, but we also have to think about our labor and reparations. Like, we have to reclaim rest, as Trisha Hersey from the NAP ministry continues to call upon us, that we have to remove ourselves from capitalism, and we have to remove ourselves from patriarchy that continues to uphold stereotype. Patriarchy within our own Blackness is so real and has never let women to be centered. That's why Black women continue to stay at the bottom rung of the power echelon in the United States and globally. Black women are the most targeted demographics for violence, rape, exploitation, and beyond. We built this whole nation and the world. So I want us to think about that when we're talking about, you know, stereotype and those lenses. Like, we have to really put the mirror back to ourselves.
Right. Yeah, Melissa, great point. But it just connects to what Roman said when it comes to how hip hop have added to the negative narratives when it comes to, even like the example you gave, Black women, right? Because if you look at a lot of the videos, the way Black women are portrayed in those videos, like you said, fine, it doesn't define you, Melissa, but it gives other people the notion about your community and what you represent. And so I think I'm just trying to connect it to what Romain said, and we ought to take responsibility.
Sure.
Yeah. Faith, go
ahead. And that is coming from the hip hop community itself. So they're not even holding up a mirror to how they are exploiting and commodifying the Black woman in their body.
Exactly, and that is why we are talking and we are creating that awareness. So at least if somebody's listening, they can have they can have a balance, right? Have a balance and decide for themselves. But Faith, quickly, because time is running and we have to touch up on a little thing. So I'm not rushing you though. I'm just
it's okay.
I'm just letting everybody that
everyone is pretty much saying all the points that I had. So I'm just sitting here looking pretty, just like wow. Awesome. But I did want to point out that whenever we do bring up stereotypes, that of course we do, speak about the ones that are negative in our community, so we can address them and we can heal and we can move forward. But some of the ones that, like, as an African American woman, that I've always, thought of positive to my African brothers and sisters were how hardworking they were, how many of them that I know, like even friends that are close to me that have come, from Africa to here, how, strong-minded they were, how not, I wouldn't say prideful. We would say, sometimes when we say prideful, we say it in a negative way, but in a positive way, how prideful they are in, where they come from in their country and their love. And so I would also like to say, like, with these stereotypes, let's just also try to make sure that we highlight the positives so that we can start reinforcing those, so that those who, want to know more about their heritage, like me, or even other, African, Americans, but really Africans, we can feel welcome into their community as well. Because I'm not going to lie to you, whenever I go to my favorite African food store up here and I get me like some fufu and some cassava leaf soup or some egusi, I don't sometimes know how to say the words right, or even, sometimes I don't even feel worthy of eating the food. I'm just like, I wish I grew up eating like this. I wish I would have, had that more in touch with my ancestors. But we should always try to promote positive stereotypes within both communities so that we can have more of a welcoming, I guess, aura for each other. And that was just the point I wanted to make, because Rebecca had great points, and I know she touched on something that I said before, but I think she pretty much washed out my point, because I was going to comment because I saw Portia's comment, but she already washed it out for me. So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. Angelo, I know DJ Fisher, you've been waiting to speak. Please go ahead, and I'll go to the comments and we can come back to you guys.
Honestly, I can't remember what I was going to talk about. I've just been enjoying what Faith said. I think I agree with you. There's a lot that unites us than divides us. And talking about the various foods just put a smile on my face. We've always talked about the fact that it's important that you know your history. It's the only way that we can move forward. There's a lot of painful things we've learned in our past, and we can only build from that. I mentioned earlier that our action plans are probably something that we should look out. We should probably work on. What are some of the things that we should do to move to the next level, to take it to the next step? We've talked about year of return in certain countries. We talked about, I know countries like Senegal and Nigeria and Benin all opening their doors to welcoming African Americans back home to preach the story out, to let not just to let a younger generation know the true stories of your ancestors, and knowing that, look, there must have been hurt over 400 years of time, but we can make it back home. America is home, but in addition to that, whichever country you're from, it's also home. Rebecca made it a point that it's not about just West Africa or Central. It's all 54 countries, or I think if you add Southern Sudan, 55 countries that have a story to tell, have a role to play in telling the story of the African American. So our goal is, to unite us, and let's find out a way of doing that.
Right, connected, right, benefiting from each other. Okay, great point. Let me go to our comments on WhatsApp. On the feed, so we can respond to some of these things. It's very, very important, listeners, that we engage ourselves. It's about 7:50 p.m. Central Time. You're still watching and you've been listening to the Progressive Mind Show, where we build our community through these types of dialogues. And we encourage you to join us every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. If you have anything that's bothering you, you can send us an email, things that are passionate to your heart, that you feel is necessary in our society, in our community, that we can talk about. Email us at info.progressiveminds@gmail.com. info.progressiveminds@gmail.com. info info.progressiveminds@gmail.com. Also, if you want to promote your business or your platform, you can email us with it and we'll promote it for you. And so it's important identifying ourselves as who we are and embracing and cherishing our different cultures, but also just being aware that we don't live in a vacuum. It's not just us. There are other people, and respecting other cultures, regardless of who they are and what they do, respecting and acknowledging that even if they have issues, even if there are negative issues that you see in other communities, negative behaviors and attitudes that you see in other communities, just have a self-retrospect and look back within yourselves and your community. You probably have the same issues within your own home too. So it behoves on us to not only look at others through through just one lens, but you have to have the lens where you're looking at both. I see you, you see me. I see you, I see myself, and I see myself in you, you see yourself in me. Just having that awareness is where we can start from. We're not asking everybody to just say, hey, you know what? We all have to come together and forget about all our differences. No, but there's a need to have that awareness, okay? And we can start from there. So I just want to read a few comments. Mbupula, let me take my time. African names, you always have to take your time. I've been African all my life, but I always have to take my time because we are powerful and it reflects in our names. Okay, so Mbapulta MP says, may you please touch on the food we need to educate Americans on that too. In my country, we don't eat fufu, but they think it's a staple food in Africa, but we have different dishes from different countries. Okay.
We have to decolonize. We have to decolonize from top to bottom, head to toe. Right. Continue to decolonize and decolonize. Hashtag decolonize the diet is something that I'm highly passionate about. I have an ancestor. Her name is Emma DUPREY de Sterling, and she was one of the founders of a lot of rustic recipes indigenous to the island of Puerto Rico, but also making sure that she's inviting African influence into the food. And so when we think about how Black people globally have some of the highest rates of diabetes, but specifically in the United States, that is a problem of America. That is a problem of how our food gets distributed and processed and things like that. So if we want to really think about our health and our liberation, decolonizing our diet, even introducing foods from around the world that have been decolonized, that have been stripped, taken to its roots. Eat roots. There are not a lot of diabetes in Africa. There's not a lot of high diabetes in the Caribbean and things like that. And so when we think about the plantain, when we think about the coconut, when we think about some indigenous vegetables, the sweet potato in Black culture comes from Puerto Rico, and a lot of people don't even know that. It's an import food from the Caribbean, and that is our soul food. So when we think about what we're trying to do as far as getting closer to our heritage, coming back to our roots, it really does start with the meal and the diet, and we need to think about that as a way to also consider health and wellness. We need to be happy, healthy, healed, and whole.
Okay, great. Now, Faith, go ahead quickly. I was just
going to say, I'm a foodie, so I eat all foods that I can get. But as a foodie and someone who's tried, different cuisines from African restaurants, before going into someone's home, you don't ever judge what's put on the table. There are many things that are made in, Africa that we may not make here in America or may understand. Like, I've never had, dried fish used to, season a stew, but let me tell you what, it will change your life. It is delicious. So before trying other foods, be open to what you're eating. Don't just go to and be like, because I know when I was younger, they used to always say so many different stereotypes about African food and what African, people may do. Don't do that. Go open that house, try that food, and you will be amazed. I'm just putting that out as a foodie myself.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me quickly get into the comments. So we have Yvonne Marfo says, I love you, Faith. And you just made a good friend. You just made a new friend. I don't know if she's already your friend, but if it's not, you made a new friend today. Asefa Gigi says, I think it needs to be addressed. That is stereotyping, isn't it? I think he or she might be referring to an earlier point. Zik Pele says the first human probably comes from Ethiopia. I think there's a statement saying Ethiopian don't identify as black. Rebecca, please respond to that. I hear that a lot from most African American. So can you respond to that quickly, Rebecca, because of time, so I can go to the
I know we have to do like last minute statements. I already commented on that, so hopefully you can like, you know, check through the recording. But real quick, just check the recording. Thanks.
No, you can respond to that because they might not be able to go back and watch the entire video. So
okay, so basically it's this idea that because people in East Africa may have Eurocentric features, and we're talking about like, you know, exoticism and all of these things, that these isms that we also need to discuss within the Black diaspora conversation. Because of that, and because of like a very proud history in Ethiopia, like the Pan-African colors come from there, African Union, a lot of things in Africa are housed in Ethiopia, and not just because I'm being biased, but because this is the conversation that comes up. And because of that, people tend to say, oh, you know, because we weren't colonized by Italy, we were occupied, because certain things didn't happen in Ethiopia that happened everywhere else. That's a victory, but that's very sad history as well. So it shouldn't be seen as we're better than anybody. And also this idea that because Ethiopians or East Africans don't call themselves Black, when they come to the US, people are upset because it sounds like they're not trying to be Black, when that's not the case. It's just Black is an umbrella term. We have to remember that. And how it's used in different countries and different places is very different. And so it's not about not trying to be Black. It's that we are Black. Everybody is Black.
Okay,
so,
great.
There you go.
Great response, and thank you so much for that. And no, I think I already seen this. FB Niger says, see, this is the crucial part of the global Black empowerment identity. One of our big problems. Great statement, Rebecca, from Asefa. And okay, so Zik says, Rebecca, you are somehow correct. And let me see if I missed any other point. Okay, so I haven't missed some comments that I wanted to look at. If I missed your comment, oh, look like we have one here. Excellent thesis, Fisho, from Odadie Pacheco. Odadie, is it Odadie? I think Odadie Pacheco. And then Odadie says, excellent. Yeah, I think that's the same person. Portia says, hey, Dr. Barrow. Yeah, okay, Dr. Barrow is gone, but thank you so much, Portia Claudine, for joining us and sharing your opinion. Great conversation. I think we've already seen that. Okay, so he says, a great disconnection between African Americans and the natives. How we approach it and reasoning is totally different. I think the panel should divide the topic between the two. Okay, thank you so much for your comment. Faith, why can't you celebrate them all? Because the truth is that you are all of them. Okay, that is so yeah, quickly, Faith, if you want to respond to that.
My point wasn't that you should not celebrate them all. My point was I was trying to figure out how practical it was for us to figure out all of what we are lineage-wise and be able to pretty much highlight that, because what we were talking, pretty much what we've been talking about this whole time is identity. And so like Mr. Angelo had talked about before, like even in like Ghana or Kenya or Uganda, there's, you know, there's different sectors, there's different castes even within those. So it's like, how do you really know exactly where you come from? You can celebrate it. I'm not stopping nobody for celebrating who they want to be or who they want to identify as. I was just saying, how practical could it be to go 400 years back in your lineage and jump down about 20 different, you know, races?
I would want to go into something quickly, and then we can try to wrap up. It's 8 p.m. exactly, but since it's a very loaded convo, you know, if you are not in a rush, we just go into a few things, and then we can wrap up. Okay, we'll take this comment real quick. Chehahi Shareka says some Ethiopians don't call themselves as Africans; they say they are Ethiopians. Some, and I don't know if again, Rebecca. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Right. Can you respond to that?
It's all because of the narrative and the history predominantly that occurred in Ethiopia in relation to colonialism and Eurocentric features.
So you think his statement is true or false?
I don't think that when people say they're Ethiopians, it's negating their Africanness. We all know it's in Africa, but I think for some, it's depending on your perception. Okay. You're saying African, that's 54 countries. I don't have all the background of 54 countries, nor do I want to speak on 54 countries. But somebody can say I'm Ethiopian because that's all that they know how to identify as. And so I think the conversation today, we just need to understand people have different perspectives.
Do you think that if anybody is in, let's say, Illinois or let's say Alaska, but they say I'm an Alaskan but I'm not an American, you think they're right? And I think there's a comparison here. So if somebody is in Ethiopia and they say, well, that based on my knowledge and my history, whatever, I identify myself as an Ethiopian and an African, you think they're right in your opinion? You think they're absolutely right?
I think it's not about right or wrong. It's about perspective. And I have to keep saying that because how someone views themselves is important. Now, I will be honest. There are some Ethiopians or some East Africaners or some people who tend to favor more Eurocentric features who will want to say that they're different. That's real too. So, but that's also real in other places around the world. So just being fair.
Absolutely. So the way I see things is how I call them. And I give an example. I'm not an Ethiopian, so I can speak to that. I'm from Ghana. If somebody's from Ghana and they say I'm Ghanaian, but I'm not African, I can say, my brother, I love you, but you were wrong. Because how can you be in the same continent and say, well, based off my perception, based off my features? No, I'm not speaking to an Ethiopian. I'm just trying to respond to the brother to say that my personal opinion is that if you're based off what we have come to know of the historical mappings of all these continents, if you fall within one, you probably belong to one. Even if you are a tiny island somewhere around, like Papua Guinea. Papua Guinea is not necessarily attached to Africa, but it's just a small island somewhere in Africa. But it's considered an African country. Seychelles, small island, a small island by the corner of Africa somewhere.
But Alinko, you have to remember that you have a certain kind of privilege that we don't discuss, which is what is considered African in this country as well as around the world is predominantly West African. So we are missing North African people. We're often missing other regions who are not included. So when we're talking about kente cloth, when we're talking about Afrobeats, when we're talking about all these things, I'm just being honest. I'm just being very honest and fair. This is the perspective that people have, and so they don't identify when people say African. Like when I was in Ethiopia, these girls in a rural region who also spoke Arabic, you know what they said? Oh, let's play some African music. It's the identity and the perception. So that's all I want to bring forward is that there are different perceptions and perspectives that we have to discuss.
Let me go to this question. Another time we'll come here. We'll come here and have these, because there is this conversation too, and so we'll come and have it. But in Black History Month and talking about the diasporans, one of the issues that has always been a barrier, a roadblock to our connection to each other, and because African Americans are the majority when it comes to Black people in this country, in the diaspora, I would say I wanted to ask this question: Do Black people, African Americans, have a culture, and should other African ethnic groups?
How are you going to introduce the question at time?
No. Guys, give me a second. Okay? Give me a second. You don't have to answer it. Listen, guys. You don't have to answer it. I am just saying, is it a valid notion? Yes or no? We will come, like I said earlier, this conversation is not the first, this is the part 2. We're setting up for the next time when we come. I just want a yes or no. Yes, I just want a yes or no response to this, and then we can come back.
I won't contribute a yes or no response because it's complicated. But something that I will end off in that I think rounds up a lot of my thoughts around this is that culture is a collective agreement based off of a people. Okay. That collectively decide that this culture is a thing. Okay. And also identity. Identity is based off of the constructs that we have put in place that say this is a thing. So race ethnicity, all of that, they're constructs. And so when we're thinking about how we self-identify, and we're thinking about how we want to make sure that we are including or lifting or centering, we have to continue to think about how much of this is construct, how much of the lens that we're working off of, and how much we choose to adhere to certain things. Because at the end of the day, it's not the unifying concept is solidarity, not conformity. I am not going to conform or adhere to certain things, and I am not going to negate certain things, and I will continue to uplift and in solidarity, so we have power within our unity, but we will not conform.
Okay, great. Rebecca, do you want to respond to that again? Yes or no? You think the African American have a culture, and should it be should we identify them as having people that have a culture? Yes or no?
I can't answer that in this short amount of time. Thank you, though.
No, that's fine. DJ Fisher.
Yeah, they would. I mean, they do have a culture, and I think, like any culture, it evolves. I mean, you can start from the beginning when they first came in here.
Okay.
And for now, the African American traditions, it just continues to flourish. Radical innovations in music, in art, in literature, cuisine, and other fields. It is. They may have lost some of the traits or the connections, the cultural ties to Africa, but yes, they do have a distinct
culture.
Okay.
Great. Okay, and one of them I can speak to is, I mean, there's different ones, but pop culture. Pop culture is, we know the origins or the custodians of pop culture, and it's all over the world. Every youth in Africa and across the world, in Asia, in other parts of the world, if they're into music and they probably want to go to secular music, and if you're not doing anything similar to pop culture, I haven't seen that yet. And again, being an African, I see it everywhere. I see it in Asia, and I see it every part of the world. So something I can identify with, something that I can pick, within the African American culture, among other traditions and cultures that imbibe in their community. But Faith, being an African American, yes or no? Think that you all have a culture, and should it be recognized by other ethnic community groups?
Yes, but I'm gonna say it like this: it's hard to go deep into this answer, because at the end of the day, like, our culture was built off of the African culture from 400 years ago. So at this point, it's kind of confusing, but for some reason, a lot of the other ethnic groups are taking part of, Black culture. So it's very muddled right now, but we do have a culture. We have a great influence.
Thank you. That's what I was going for. Romain, your response. Same question. I think your thing is muted, and that's my fault. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I could have been saying something, but now you mute. No, I'm just. First off, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come on the show and share some ideas, and thanks to the panel. I really appreciated it, and it was a thoughtful and very productive conversation. Just very quickly, I just wanted to just say, you know what, in order to bridge the gap, let's start investing in each other and investing in entrepreneurship through the Black community. And the Black community will return the favor, guaranteed financially. So let's start doing that. Now, to answer your question, I would say I agree with the panel. It is a complicated, but my answer would be it depends factor. It depends on each. It depends. In order to get it right into the depends, we need more time.
To be continued. Yes. Okay. Well, that is absolutely
definitely the part 3. Thank you all, friends. Thank you for inviting us. What a powerful conversation.
Yes. So Portia says, yes, African Americans have a culture. We are a new group, and we are a new growth of people. Thank you. And Kay says, Rebecca, please tune into music for your quarantine feed on Sundays. You will see a mix of West African and North African music songs. Lol. I mean, he's just been having fun with that.
They're trying to school you on Afrobeat, Rebecca. They're trying to school you, be like, get this Afrobeat in your life, loosen up.
Listen, y'all need to don't let me unleash. Don't let me unleash. I've been trying to be good all day.
So on that note, I just want my audience to give us the closing remarks, and I'll start with Faith. If you have any organization or anything that you want to plug in, please go ahead and do that within 30 seconds. Help us in closing as we set ourselves for the next episode of this convo.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on the show and the opportunity to speak with so many well-educated Black people. This is just amazing. This just touches my heart, But I'm not going to plug any organizations, but I will say let's start investing and bringing more awareness to Black HBCUs. Well, HBCUs in general, and let's start promoting our kids and the younger generation to be entrepreneurs and not just workers in America. Let them be those who go and make a business or start something instead of being someone that works under the white man, figuratively. And
thank you so much, Fisho.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you again for putting this together, and I'd just like to summarize by saying, as you started in the beginning, we're talking about Black History Month and what we can do to make it better. And from everything we've talked about, if I was to summarize it, I would say that the theme is we should tell our own story and not allow somebody to tell us that. Roman spent a long time talking about his story. And it reminded me of a popular Chinua Achebe quote. He says, until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Okay, so if we don't tell our own story and let somebody tell us the story, what do you expect them to say?
Right.
So we had a caller who talked about the Chicago school system or generally school systems not talking about African American history. If we know our history,
right,
let's not wait for others to teach our kids.
Right.
Let's do it ourselves.
Thank you so much.
Utilize your voice and then spread the word.
Well, but you also have a DJ. I mean, you're also a DJ and you have your Sunday. Can you give us that plug-in?
Oh, yes. Sundays, every Sundays from 4 to 7 Eastern time. You can catch me on Facebook, EKOW Official. And the program is Music for Your Quarantine Feet. We play Afrobeats, old school. And we interview African artists, African artists from all over the world. So who knows? We might have an Ethiopian artist on this weekend. Who knows?
Yes. Yes.
All right, Melissa.
Thank you again for this time and space. I think these conversations are so necessary and important. This is part of the work I do. I just did a solo show called Rise of Thunderdome and continuously putting forward a lot of the grassroots organizations that I'm linked to in Chicago. One primarily is the Let Us Breathe collective that creates Black liberation spaces all over Chicago. Free Street Theater is currently creating a free pantry in back of the yard. So check them out. And also let us not forget the many, many incarcerated bodies in Chicago. We continue to fund the Chicago Bail Fund. So that way we can make sure that people who are in prison for fighting back have access and resources, and then continuously fighting to abolish prisons and defund the police. So those are just some of those things I want to continue pushing. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Boom.
Oh, I don't know who that was, but I think we
Instagram at Boom Boom DUPREY.
Boom Boom DUPREY. Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you.
And catch me on Grey's Anatomy in March. New episodes drop in March. I play one of the new interns on Grey's Anatomy.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to it. Grey's Anatomy. Okay, we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Melissa and Rebecca.
A couple different organizations that I'm working with relating to refugee resettlement, since that was my previous work. You can check out the Refugee Action Network. It's kind of like an umbrella collective that's working with a whole bunch of refugee resettlement and researchers, various organizations, what mental health, CPS, that are trying to do advocacy work and, figure out housing and legislation work. So check them out if anybody's interested. Also, World Refugee Day is a great celebration in Chicago that is also going to expand to all immigrants and all people to celebrate each of our cultures. co-chair over there, as well as doing research and organizing. So any events, we'll let Alinko know. But I just want to end on saying that I hope we get to really discuss and think about how we unite by first understanding what does it mean to be Black? What is Blackness? Who is we? What is culture? What are these different perspectives? How can we connect to each other if we don't know what page everybody else is on?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. And my brother Romain, and I know you have some information regarding business, how minority folks can have access to some resources and all. So just quickly give us that information while we try to bring this discussion to an end. Yes, man. I
muted me again, man.
I think I'm having that one of those technical difficulty days, but my bad. Go ahead.
No problem. I want to thank the panel. I want to thank Melissa, Faith, Rebecca, Dr. Melandon, and Brother Joseph, and I couldn't pronounce his name, but the other doctor, that's the DJ. I really appreciate you.
And DJ Fisho.
Huh?
DJ Fisho. Just call him that.
Oh, DJ Fisho. Thank you, because I couldn't pronounce it.
Fisho.
Right.
F.
Fish. Oh, okay. Well, I'll get it right next time. So hopefully you'll invite me again. And I want to thank everyone. And my show is The Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com. That airs Monday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So please join in. We'll have conversations such as this and elaborate, but it's hard to get into. So very quickly, in order to embrace, let's stop talking about it and be about it. And let's do it through entrepreneurship in the Black community, especially in Chicago, West Side, Western suburbs. They really need the culturalism and the isms in that experience. So let's start with that conversation. Hopefully the next time I come in, we'll have more time. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So we have come to an end, and I'd like to thank my great audience, K-Mensa, Mapulita, and then I think a comment just came through. I just want to say, okay, Kofi, just pass that comment. There was one that came here that I wanted to read out. The customs, arts, social institutions and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. And I think she was just trying to give us a definition of culture. And she's saying, Dr. Melida, Dr. Portia is saying, yes, African Americans have a culture. No, I think we already read that. Let me see here. Every group of people have a culture. Okay, so that's what she's trying to say. Now, on this beautiful note, we have engaged you all. Want to thank all the audience for contributing. Also want to thank my guest, Dr. Melida, who left earlier, Joseph Edwards, Faith D. Pittman, Professor Angelo EKOW, DJ Fisho, Rebecca Zellelew, Romain Morrow, and Melissa DUPREY, who also was on the panel. She just left. We are grateful that you given us your audience to come your way with the Diaspora Convo Part 2. We never claim to have all the answers, and we know that such is the depth of our struggle and our issues as the Black community, that we cannot purport to be to have all it takes, to have the equipment and the tools to deal with it on one setting or on one at one event. But what we believe we can keep doing is keep engaging and keep being real to ourselves and some of the issues that confront us. So we want to encourage you to continue this conversation in your homes. And one thing I also want to encourage everyone is, as we continue, especially folks in the West African community, we ought to recognize that name calling of other communities will not help us as a people as we move forward. We have to acknowledge and be respectful of every culture, even if we don't believe in it. We have to be respectful and honoring of every society or every human being and every person, regardless of how they speak, how they look, how they walk, and how they behave, because we have issues as well. We as a people can move forward if at least we have that thing that recognizes that the other people, the other person is as equally important as we are. And that in that manner, we can be making strides to building a better society. And so on that note, I would like to thank you all once again for chiming in this beautiful conversation. And we are looking forward to be coming your way with part 3. And we hope that you will join us. Remember, to whom much is given, much is required. This has been your host, Senna, aka Alinko with the Progressive Mind Show. We shall be seeing you next week, and God bless you. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.